Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into something that might seem surprisingly simple. It's a transcript from an English learning podcast. Just people talking about, their daily lives, maybe some travel plans, kind of mundane.
Exactly. You look at it and it's hosts and learners just chatting about very basic stuff like what time do you wake up? What did you do last weekend? Where do you want to travel? Feels like real beginner material.
But that's what we're here for in this deep dive, isn't it? To look past that surface simplicity, to understand the sophisticated strategy that's actually going on inside this source.
Right.
We're trying to pull out the insights on how these seemingly simple themes are used to build really complex skills.
It reveals some powerful ideas about language learning and honestly just effective learning overall.
It's that contrast you mentioned. How can something as predictable, maybe even a bit boring, like a daily routine, and something exciting and unpredictable, like travel, how can they both be valuable learning tools?
Complementary tools, even. That's the really clever tension this source taps into.
And that's what we want to explore, using familiarity to build confidence and then novelty to push the boundaries.
Exactly.
So where does this source kick things off? It starts with that solid foundation, daily routines.
Right, that's the first move. They get the learners, Tom and Lina, talking about the absolute basics of everyday life. What happens morning to night, what the weekends usually look like.
And they really get into the specifics, which feels important. Tom shares his morning, wakes up at 7, brushes teeth, breakfast, then work 9 to 5, software engineer.
Standard stuff, yeah.
Evenings are quieter reading, TV, maybe cooks, just relaxing. Weekends are a bit looser, sleeps in Saturday, games or movies. Sundays maybe visiting family, shopping, and crucially, planning the week ahead.
And Lena's routine, it's different, but just as detailed. She's an English teacher, up at 6:30 a.m., shower, coffee, gets ready for work. Her evenings sound pretty chill, too. Cooks, maybe a walk, calls a friend. Weekends, clean Saturday morning, meets friends later. Sunday morning, cafe for breakfast, then movies or music Sunday evening.
So, okay, out of everything they could talk about, why start with routines? What makes this the starting block for learning?
Well, it's incredibly strategic, actually. Daily routines are like the perfect ground zero for language learning. They're built on the most common verbs: wake up, eat, go, work, read,
Where the essentials.
and common time expressions in the morning, after work, on weekends. But the real magic, I think, is the repetitive structure. I do this, I go there, I have that. Simple sentence patterns used constantly.
Okay. So the repetition isn't just hammering vocabulary. It's actually like hardwiring the basic grammar.
Totally.
Building that muscle memory for sentences without you even realizing it.
Precisely. That predictability means learners hear and produce these core patterns again and again. It lowers the cognitive load too, right? You're not juggling complex grammar and new words and new topic all at once.
Yeah.
You're just applying new words to a framework you already know well, your own day. It's foundational.
That makes sense. It makes me think about my own day. If I tried describing it in a new language, just saying, I make coffee, I check email,
Right.
I walk the dog. That's a whole exercise right there. Using your own life as the textbook.
Exactly. You're using the structure you already live by as a scaffold for the language.
Okay, so routines give you that solid, repetitive base, build the house on rock kind of thing. But language isn't just describing the same day over and over. You need to branch out. And this source makes a really smart shift, doesn't it? From the predictable to the adventurous. Talking travel.
Yeah, that transition to travel is very natural, but it's a big step up linguistically. It immediately forces you beyond the simple present tense you use for routines.
Right.
Now you need to talk about things that happened in the past, or things you're planning or hoping for in the future. That automatically brings in different verb tenses and, frankly, a much wider range of vocabulary.
And to use specific examples again, Tom talks about a recent trip. Was it Japan?
Yep, Japan, Tokyo, and Kyoto. He mentions trying sushi, seeing temples in Kyoto, riding the bullet train.
And he describes how it felt amazing but tiring from all the walking. That descriptive language comes in.
Right. And then Lina shifts gears to the future and her dreams. She's planning a trip to Europe, wants to visit Italy, Rome, Venice, talks about loving the food, the history.
Wants to see the Colosseum, take a gondola ride, those aspirations. And you can hear the language change right away. Tom's using the simple past. I traveled, I visited, I tried, it was. He's telling a story about finished events.
Exactly. Whereas Lina, she's using future forms and modals. I am planning. I want to visit. I want to see. It's all about intention and desire.
And that contrast seems deliberate, right? It's showing learners how language functions differently, depending on the context, past narrative versus future plans.
Definitely not accidental. It exposes them to the grammar needed for more dynamic, real-world conversations.
And they even get into the practical stuff, the nuts and bolts of travel.
Yeah, things like making a reservation, hotels, flights, packing a suitcase, needing a passport, a boarding pass.
And they mention Lena's specific actions now.
Yeah.
She's saving money, checking flights, made sure her passport's valid.
These are concrete tasks, you know. They
Okay.
come with specific functional words. You move from eat breakfast to make a hotel reservation. It anchors the language to real actions you need to perform.
And this is where the stretch happens for you, the listener. Think about how different the language feels when you're describing a past trip you loved or dreaming about a future one. Compared to just saying, I wake up at 7, it demands more, new verbs, nouns, different set and structures.
It pushes you into complexity, but in a way that's really motivating because it lets you share more of yourself, your experiences, your hopes.
Okay, so we've got routines for the basic structure, via repetition, travel for expanding language through engaging topics. But the real gold, I think, is when we look at how the source actually helps the learner.
Yeah.
It's not just exposure, it's giving them tools, an explicit learner's toolkit.
Yes, this is where the source really shows its hand, teaching the how of learning. They don't just let the conversation happen, they dissect it. First up, the vocabulary review. They pull out key words from the travel chat: destination, itinerary, reservation, suitcase, adventure, passport.
Right, and crucially, they don't just list them with a definition. That's often not enough, is it?
No, not at all. They immediately give an example sentence showing how to use it. Paris is our final destination. I need to pack my suitcase.
That context is everything. Knowing the word is one thing, knowing how to actually slot it into a sentence naturally is another.
Exactly. Context cements the meaning and the function. Then they pivot to pronunciation practice. They focus on saying the word slowly, syllable by syllable, and they point out the stress syllable. Destination. Reservation.
Why is that stress pattern focus so important? Is it just about sounding, more native-like?
It helps with that, sure, but it's more fundamental. It's massively important for comprehension, both for understanding others and for being understood yourself. Stress is a core part of the rhythm and music of English. Getting the stress wrong can make a word really hard to recognize or sometimes even change its meaning. So guiding learners helps them tune their ear and their own production.
Okay, that makes sense. And then they pull it all together with role-play dialogue. This feels like the practical application peak.
It really is.
Taking the vocabulary, the tenses, the structures, and making the learner use them in a simulated real situation.
It's a fantastic application. Lina acts as the travel agent, Tom's the customer planning a specific trip. 2 weeks, Italy and France in June. They go through booking flights, flying to Rome June 10th, back from Paris June 24th, economy, hotels comfortable, near the city center, even adding travel insurance.
And that forces the learner, Tom in this case, to actually produce the language, not just understand it passively. You have to ask questions. Can you help me? Make requests. I'd like to book. Confirm details. So that's flight XYZ.
Right. It bridges that critical gap between knowing about English and actually using English to get something done.
Yeah, the doing part.
And layered right into this, they slip in a mini grammar tip. They tackle a really common confusion point: present perfect versus simple past.
Oh, yeah, that's classic.
They clarify. Present perfect for general life experience, like, have you ever traveled to Asia? No specific time. Versus simple past for a specific event in the past, like, I visited Japan last year. Definite time.
That distinction is so crucial for telling stories clearly, isn't it? I have seen the Colosseum is very different from I saw the Colosseum last summer.
Exactly. And by highlighting it with clear examples right after they've been talking about past travel and future plans, it really lands. It preempts common mistakes.
So these toolkit sections, vocab, pronunciation, role play, grammar, they show a key learning principle, don't they? Break down the big, scary task of learning English into smaller, manageable chunks you can actually get a handle on.
Absolutely. Vocabulary, sounds, rules, and then a safe space, the role play, to practice putting it all together.
Which leads nicely into the final part of the source, where they field the listener question. Maria asks simply, how can I improve my English speaking skills?
And the advice they give back is just so practical. And honestly, I think it applies to learning almost anything, not just a language.
What do they suggest?
Practice every day. Find people to talk with friends, a language group. Listen actively to things like podcasts and repeat what you hear. Record yourself speaking. Read things out loud.
Yeah, read out loud one often gets missed. But it forces your mouth to actually make the sounds and rhythms, doesn't it? Not just think them.
Exactly. It engages different pathways, and then they hit you with maybe the most important piece of advice.
Which is?
Don't worry about making mistakes.
The big one. That's so hard for learners, though. Why is that piece so vital?
Because the fear of messing up just freezes you. It stops you from actually doing the practice, from trying things out. You avoid situations where you know you'll make mistakes, but those are precisely the situations where you learn the most.
Right.
Mistakes aren't failures, they're just feedback. They show you where you need to focus more or get clarification. The source gets that fluency isn't about perfection day one, it's about communicating and just getting better over time.
So the universal takeaway here, whether you're learning English or coding or guitar or anything, mastery comes from that consistent, active practice. Actually using the knowledge, engaging with it, and crucially, not letting the fear of stumbling stop you.
It's really a blueprint for deliberate practice and building that resilience you need when things get tough.
Okay, so let's quickly recap this deep dive. We started with what looked like a simple English learning transcript. We saw how it cleverly used predictable daily routines to build foundational language patterns through sheer repetition.
Right, establishing that core structure.
And then use the excitement of travel to push learners, expanding a vocabulary, introducing new tenses, practicing real-world actions.
Moving from the foundation to more complex structures.
And maybe most importantly, we pulled out those explicit learning strategies they embedded, breaking down vocab with examples, targeted pronunciation practice, focusing on strengths.
Clarifying tricky grammar points like present perfect versus past simple, and that crucial simulation practice through role play.
The big insight, really, is that even in this seemingly basic source, the structure of the learning process reveals a powerful, universal blueprint.
Yeah?
Breaking down complexity, giving targeted practice, encouraging active use, and normalizing mistakes. It's the method itself that holds the deeper lesson, beyond just the English content.
Exactly. So the final thought to leave you with. Consider your own life right now. Think about your own daily routines, the predictable patterns. Or think about the next adventure you're planning. Maybe it's a work project, a new skill you want to learn, or an actual trip. Yeah. If you look closely at the structure of your day or the steps involved in planning that adventure, how many learning opportunities are hidden there? How is complexity broken down? How could you apply principles of repetition, practice, and maybe even role-playing to something you want to master? What can you learn about learning just by unpacking the structure of your own life?